Hello and welcome to Arctic Refuge. I'd like to show you guys a couple build orders from Voodoo. So probably won't have too much time to make videos, but the ones I will make I'll focus on gameplay like the last two videos I made. Hopefully people found those useful. Of course there are build orders without hydro and then build orders on Certus with the hydro. And this map, once again, no hydro here, nowhere on the map. But it's actually I want to slow down, just talk about the map before I go into the build order itself, where this build order is effective. So Arctic Refuge is a map where expansion is critical. You see the mass extractors are spread out, so you want to use the speed of your engineers to get those mass extractors. You can't just take a small step, get a whole bunch of mass, and then there isn't a particular direction to go. There's multiple directions, at least 3 pathways to expand through the middle to the civs. You got to get there with your ACUs eventually, and of course to the sides. Which really means second air, which we see here, is going to be very good. If you don't go second air, you got to go a really good rating. And second air is, on this map particular, isn't that common. Usually people go pretty strong land and raid with assault bots because it's really nice. You can hide places. But second air also quite effective, and Voodoo says that it's a hard map. Of course he's playing Craze, so he's got to have his top game. So let's speed this back up and let's check out the build order. Usually the build orders I've shown so far have 2 factories, or there's a couple with 3, but this one has 3. Factory, 3 P-gens, 2 mass extractors, 4 P-gens, air. So that part is a pretty standard second air, except of course a little heavier on the power than what you might usually expect. And then after the second air you have 2 more P-gens and a factory. So the ACU is actually going to hang out at the base a little longer than what you usually see on small maps. You usually want to get your ACU a little out in the field faster. But of course here, since you got to use the speed of the engineers, you can keep the ACU at base. So this is where that makes sense. And another critical point about this build, you would actually stall if you didn't do reclamation. So maps with early reclaim, like this one, actually these trees are quite nice. You can't use this build order. We can see Voodoo now getting the mass extractor, so at this point you're in danger of stalling pretty badly. And also one thing about this build, it's quite aggressive in terms of engineers, so the size of the map here helps. If it was a small map, going first 5 engineers is very dangerous because you expose yourself to raids, but there's a little bit of time, so you can go first 5 engies. It's about as much as you ever want to do. Because here, by this time, you might have bombers in your base. By 2 minutes, also some light assault bots if Craze was very aggressive. But actually, these trees, this is the first engineer, has been reclaiming. He's got 43 mass, so if that engineer wasn't reclaiming this whole time, we'd be in a stall. And another important thing about this build, besides 2 expanding engineers here, the other 2 engineers are going to be assisting the ACU. So maximizing the build capacity here. A build capacity of 20. They're getting this power out very quickly. And now after the first 5, there's going to be a tank and a scout that's going to come out, and they're going to protect one of these side expanding engineers. Looks like it's going to be the bottom one, and this is a very common place to raid. This is where Voodoo is going to move his tank. And another important thing, 2 bombers and a whole bunch of interceptors. And on a map like this, first 2 bombers from a second air is pretty good, because it's not a very high chance that the other player is going to be going second air, so you should have a bit of time to do your bombing. And here we saw the mass actually go to 0 for a while, but this engineer is really saving the day. And if you think about it, if you're in that mode, and your economy is in the mode where you're at 0 mass and you're over, like right there, you're overusing. At that point you're losing time on all of your projects, but at the same time, of course that seems really negative, that is the perfect time to get any reclaim. That reclaim immediately gets used. So there is inflation of resources as bases get larger and everything gets larger, and as soon as you take the reclaim and turn it into something, like here where Voodoo is turning it into his 3rd land factory, and it looks like the 3rd land factory, a whole bunch of artillery and then tanks. Of course that artillery is going to be used to break the civilians in the middle. And once again, we're seeing these stalls, but without that 300 mass that Voodoo was able to get from these trees, these stalls would be absolutely crippling. So this is basically the build order once Voodoo finishes it here in terms of game time. A little over 3 minutes, and as soon as that happens, the engineers that were assisting the ACU are going to switch to making more land factories. Of course, the bomber also provides great recon to see where the very slow raid coming in from Crazed tanks actually, instead of light assault bots. That's why this builder is actually very good against what Crazed is doing. So Crazed seems to be kind of a very conservative raid, which was spotted by the bombers. And now there's 2 bombers in the field for Voodoo, which you can use to cut out these engineers. And of course, that is a very big pain. That's gonna Voodoo is now going to know that this is going to be a fairly safe position where there won't be any engineering from Crazed for a while, and it's going to be a problem for Crazed not getting all those mass extractors. And of course, that early recon gave an opportunity for Voodoo to get into position, hide the engineer, get more tanks to protect on the other side. Same thing, these tanks are supposed to be protecting an engineer, completely are not going to work because they cannot shoot at air, and all kinds of problems happening in Crazed base. Meanwhile, you can see a little more power here somewhere. Nope. It appears just another land factory, otherwise not much more power being produced by Voodoo. So here 4:30, I'm going to stop it. This game ends with pretty crushing defeat for Crazed. But a really good build order, and actually now I'm going to move on. I watched the exact same build order, but on a slightly different map. Hello and welcome to Saltrock Colony. So we're going to see Voodoo against Crazed once again. And Voodoo is going to demonstrate the same build order, but on a slightly different map. And actually this map is probably a little better because there is a little more reclaim. But it's the same style of map as our Arctic Refuge. A lot of expansion, very spread out, so the speed of the ACU is really something that is a big weakness. You got to use the speed of the engineers to grab those. So once again, here it's a little less aggressive with engineers, only 4 engineers. I guess that makes sense. There's a little less distance between the 2 players. So Crazed is known for really good light assault bots when he gets the opportunity. Very surprised actually in the previous game we didn't see those. He just went with tanks. But that's probably because there's always good protection on those engineers on Arctic Refuge, and sending light assault bots to it, hoping that somebody like Voodoo is not going to have it protected, is wishful thinking. So now once again we're seeing 3 P-gens. This is a pretty big difference, going really low on mass. If you go instead of the usual 2 with a 3, you do lose out on a bit of mass because you get to the mass extractors later. And you can see the way that Voodoo positions his ACU. It's a bit of a long walk, but it's alright. So it looks like the 3rd engineer here is going to get the rocks. It is quite dangerous to do it that long. Usually I go with the 2nd engineers to get reclaim if you're doing something funny with your build order. But it looks like Voodoo had this figured out. I think it was the long walk that allowed him to do that. And you can see 2 expanding engineers that are now exposed. Actually, this engineer is also exposed, and the 4th engineer has gone to go ahead and assist the ACU. In the previous version of this build order, there was 2 engineers assisting the ACU, but now it's only 1, and instead now we're going to see a scout and a couple tanks, and another tank and a scout. So it looks like 2 groups to do protection. Looks like one's going to go to the top, one to the bottom. Skipping the Hydra because that takes a little too long with an engineer. And here comes the air factory. Notice the eco here. Really no problems, and that's because this engineer getting a little more reclaim, plus it's only a single engineer instead of 2 assisting the ACU, so the resources aren't being used as quickly as in the previous version of this build order. But the result's going to be the same. 2 bombers plus a couple interceptors. Of course here it's a little more likely that Crazed is also going 2nd air. It's a very good map for 2nd air. Really, 10 by 10 maps are really good for second air. And now here comes the raid from Crazed. This is the single engineer that was not protected, Voodoo protected, to the sides, but really losing that engineer isn't that big a deal because there's plenty of mass. Protecting these engineers on the side, which really walked a long ways, is a priority. And looks like this engineer is going to escape. Here comes the tank for Voodoo for protection. Of course, once again, these bombers from second air, they give so much good intel. Voodoo on his third factory. A bit of power problems here. It looks like that engineer that was assisting was switched to power, so you see a bit of variation. And a successful bomb on the ACU, so not that successful, but at the same time these bombers given total recon. And actually here we can see Voodoo went quite low on his power with this build order, and that's what's not allowing him to use up all the mass that he's got. Perhaps on a map like this that has so much early reclaim, it would have been better to get a little more power. But still quite an effective build order that puts you in a position to do protection of your engineers. Second air allows you to get all recon. Killing these engineers here like Voodoo is about to do is really annoying. So, very effective opening. Hopefully people found this useful, and then we'll move on to something else. Hello and welcome to Desert Arena, and this will probably be a last build order I'll show you guys, and we're going to be looking at ZLO. He's going with Cybern against Crazed. And this map, Desert Arena, is basically covered with mass. You can see all these rocks. It's just huge amounts. It's like tens of thousands. So this makes build orders early on very strange. You can do a lot of weird things. And very close hydro as well. And there's quite a few build orders where you skip Tech 1 P-gens completely. But ZLO here is going to pick up one. And then 4 engineers, which are followed by Manti, a couple engineers, and scouts. And it's not a very big map, so raids are quite dangerous. So 4 engineers is could be a bit dangerous, could be exposed, especially against Tech 1 air. It's nice to get an early scout in there, but if you're basically betting on the fact that you're not going to be raided, it's alright. Actually, first scout is always good here. Stick a scout right there. You can see any first air or any raids coming in. But of course that's not optimal if you want to get as much eco as possible. ZLO then picks up all 4 mass extractors. Quite a few builders actually don't pick up these mass extractors and just go with reclaim. But this does make it quite safe when you get all that mass. And he's going to go straight to the hydro, so all the build capacity on the hydro. And looks like the ACU is going to build the factories staying put at the base, while the engineers are going to go on a big hydro construction spree. Couple NGs are going to spread out and do reclamation with some attack moves. And you can see here, it's very simple set of units. You want scouts, you want Manti for protection, and you want engineers reclaiming everything. And on this map, basically build capacity and power are the limiting factors. And this is where ZLO is actually taking a big risk, completely exposing his engineers. Finally the Mantis comes in, and if Crazed either one first air or a couple aggressive light assault bots, he'd be in quite a bit of trouble. But actually, if you watch some of the top players, they usually don't take the risk, because if you make a mistake and your raid doesn't pay off, you can fall really far behind in eco. So perhaps ZLO is using that fact to his advantage. Not giving too much respect. Now this Mantis is in position to start protecting, although some fast light assault bots still might get in, but with the raider not coming in, I think any chance to raid this position are pretty much gone. And something very strange, 2 hydras and a single P-gen here, with a 4th factory nearly complete. We already see 429 mass reclaimed, so basically 2 of the factories have been paid for with the reclaim. And something that often happens on this one, if you trust just factory attack moves, things like that to get your reclaim, sometimes it goes really low, and that's where you might want to pick up an engineer and just do some manual reclaim, which is always faster. Of course, you don't want to do that all the time because it's a waste of concentration. You want to be looking at your raids, and so far Crazed allowing ZLO to do whatever he wants first 3 minutes, and that's why Crazed is in a good position to grab quite a few of these hydras. And you can see these hydras actually a bit more valuable than any of these mass extractors. That's something to think about. Point defense going up, very good position for point defense, and these engineers are going to attempt to grab yet another hydra. And you can see the ACU is just at the base building factories. It's a number of good things about it. If there's a raid directly at the base, the ACU will protect it. And of course, then once you get the intel about where a big raid is coming in, that's where the ACU from ZLO can move. And it looks like here ZLO is finally going to see some action. There's a whole bunch of strikers now coming in. These engineers are not going to get that fourth hydra. And one thing about Cybern, of course, they can assist with a Mantis. 5 Mantis build as quickly as an engineer. Definitely use that on a map like this. So you can see what has basically happened, something that can only work on this map. Already 2,000 reclaim after under 4 minutes has allowed so many factories. And at this point on this map, all you gotta do, you gotta grab your engineers, make factories, make engineers, and make power, and then make as many units as possible. Grab map control and try to deny as much of map territory as possible. You want to prevent not just the mass extractors and hydras, you want to prevent the other player from grabbing all your reclaim. And of course, going wide because it's all flat with those raids is always good. And eventually air and tech 2 point defense creeps, things like that are all good on this map. So hopefully people enjoyed these 3 build orders and find them useful. And if people have requests for a particular map or have a good build order they want to share with me and with everybody else, please let me know.